So let's take a look at the future of inflation, because isn't everybody talking about inflation these days? So this is the setup. This is the setup. This is how they're going to justify this next phase, shifting us into the next phase. How a move to an electronic money standard, right now we're on a paper money standard, to an electronic money standard can lower the inflation target towards zero. Zero inflation. Guess what? Gold did that. Gold has done that for 6,000 years. But I'm going to trust the central banks to take me to zero inflation. A world with lower inflation and even zero inflation and no persistent recessions may sound like a pipe dream, but we argue that it is possible by transitioning to an electronic money standard. Oh my God, does that not sound like utopia? Well, I would argue it kind of probably depends on a recession for who and not a recession for who. Because it should be pretty clear to everybody that central banks create winners and losers. And all they have to do is eliminate the zero lower bound. Now, what is the zero lower bound? That means that when you get to zero, it's hard to go below to negative rates. And you know, they've been testing that since 2009, and it hasn't worked. But they've been testing negative rates, But let's eliminate that completely, and we won't get any inflation. It will empower the central banks, and they could possibly move toward targeting full price stability. Well, price stability is you're not going to ask for a raise if your perception of inflation is really low. With zero inflation. Follow the links, read this for yourself. So let's look at this electronic money standard. The zero lower bound arises when a government issues pieces of paper or coins guaranteeing a zero nominal interest rate over all time horizons. Okay? So they issue paper and they issue coins, and that paper, it's a debt instrument, right? It's a Federal Reserve note. It's a debt instrument, but it does not pay interest. It does charge you inflation tax. There isn't a hidden inflation tax. There is now a growing body of work developing mechanisms, because this is easy to do with algorithms, to expand the central bank toolkit, because they're out of tools, to overcome the zero lower bound. Oh, that means that they can go below zero. That's what they're talking about. Its elimination opens the possibility of a zero inflation target. Now, it is not what's true that counts. It is what is perceived to be true that counts, says Henry Kissinger. All they have to do is eliminating the arbitrage opportunity between cash that guarantees a zero nominal interest rate and money in the bank that would earn negative interest rates. So in other words, if you started watching your bank account evaporate, right, the principal go down, and you know you're not spending money, it's because of the negative rates, then you would go and pull your money out of the bank to preserve your principal. Now, not your purchasing power, your principal, because that's what negative rates do. They erode your principal. So all they have to do is charge the same level of negative rates on the cash. When you withdraw it, when you deposit it, when you use it, there will be a chip in there. And so if they charge negative rates, well, guess what? Your cash is also subject to those negative rates. And voila! Except, let's be really clear on this. Now there are only two functions of money. And that is as an accounting tool and as a tool of barter. Forget any level of store of value, let alone long-term store of value. For that, you gotta have this. But the new money that they're proposing, it's one that they can control directly. So now the problem with the central banks in 18 months going through the system, well, guess what? Once they institute this, if you're not spending money fast enough, or you're not spending money on what they want you to spend money on, that's a button push. And what are you gonna do? That's why it's so critical to have this, and as well as, real money outside of the system, real money. Because you can always make a deposit, and that's how you're gonna protect